Hey there, folks. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of politics, and specifically focusing on why North Carolina is such a crucial state in the presidential race. So, buckle up and let's get started. North Carolina is a state that has historically voted for the winner of the presidential election for almost a century, with 15 electoral votes up for grabs. Whichever candidate secures them will have a significant boost in their quest for the White House. Now, let's talk about North Carolina's demographics. It's not as diverse as California or New York, but it does have a unique mix of voters. You've got urban voters in places like Charlotte and Raleigh, rural voters across the state, military voters in bases like Fort Bragg, and even college town USA Chapel Hill. When it comes to campaigning, both Democrats and Republicans are putting in significant effort in North Carolina. This state is not going to be ignored by either party, and with several TV ads currently airing in North Carolina on various channels, it's clear that both sides are pulling out all the stops to win here. In conclusion, North Carolina is a crucial state in the presidential race. Due to its high electoral vote count and diverse voter base, it will be fascinating to see how each party adapts their strategy to appeal to this audience and ultimately secure those valuable electoral votes. Thanks for joining me on this political journey. We're going to dive into a fascinating topic: how North Carolina has voted in past presidential elections. Let's take a look at the electoral map from 2016 to see how things have changed. So, in 2016, North Carolina was a crucial swing state that ultimately voted for President Trump, but it was much closer than many people realized. President Trump won the state by just 97,988 votes, with a margin of 3.85%. Now let's compare that to other states like Florida and Ohio, which were also crucial swing states. In Florida, Trump won by 119,020 votes, with a margin of just 0.2%. And in Ohio, he won by 80,438 votes, with a margin of 5.3%. Interestingly enough, in the last decade or so, North Carolina has consistently voted for the Republican candidate for president. But how did it change over time? Let's go back to the year 2000 and see how North Carolina has voted in past presidential elections. During this time frame, North Carolina has indeed been a pretty consistent swing state. It went for Al Gore in 1996, and then flipped back to the Democratic Party after voting for Bill Clinton in 1992 and George W. Bush in 1988. It even voted for Ronald Reagan in 1984 and Gerald Ford in 1976. So there you have it, a quick history lesson on how North Carolina has voted in past presidential elections. I hope you found this interesting and informative. Thanks for tuning in. We're diving into the key voter groups in North Carolina that could make all the difference in this year's midterm elections. So, let's get started. First up, we have the African American community. This group has a 25% turnout rate, but there are 350,000 potential voters who haven't cast their ballots yet. If all 350,000 of those individuals show up to vote, it could make a huge impact on the race. Next, we have the young voters. There are 194,000 potential voters in this age group who have yet to vote. If just half of them show up at the polls, it could be a game changer. Moving on to Latino voters. There are 218,000 potential voters in this group who haven't voted yet. If just a third of them vote, it could be a significant factor in deciding who takes home the win. Lastly, we have the unregistered voters in Mecklenburg County. There are 78,000 individuals in this situation who could make a real difference if they register and vote. If only 1% of North Carolinians take action and register for voting rights within prisons and jails, it could be a turning point for democracy across America. In conclusion, these key voter groups in North Carolina have the power to shape the outcome of this year's midterm elections. So let's spread the word and encourage everyone to exercise their right to vote. Thank you so much for watching. Today, we're diving into the key issues for voters in North Carolina. Remember, your vote counts, so make sure you're informed and prepared for Election Day. In North Carolina, one of the most pressing issues for voters is the Senate race. The state is considered a swing state, which means both major parties have a shot at taking it. So, this race could be a game changer on a national level. The current senator, Thom Tillis, has been in office since 2015 and is up for re-election. The Democratic candidate is Cal Cunningham. If Cunningham pulls through and wins the Senate seat for his party, it could potentially flip the majority in the Senate. Next up is the gubernatorial race between Dan Forest and Roy Cooper. Dan Forest has been endorsed by Donald Trump and is running against Roy Cooper, who's currently serving his second term as governor. This could be a crucial battle in determining who holds power in the executive branch of North Carolina. Finally, remember that early voting starts on October 15th. Make sure to check your voter registration status ahead of time, and double-check your polling place on Election Day to avoid any last-minute surprises. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope this information helps you make an informed decision on Election Day. We're diving into a fascinating discussion about how President Biden and Trump have tackled issues essential to North Carolina voters. So, let's get started. In his latest address to the nation, President Biden touched on a variety of topics important to North Carolina voters. One major concern is the rising costs of food and gasoline. He reassured Americans that their utility bills won't be affected by the war in Ukraine, as the impact should be minimal. However, when asked about his response to inflation last month, Biden stated that he was working on it, but since then, he has made no mention of this serious issue. Intriguingly, his administration recently announced a plan to import 170 million barrels of foreign oil over the next 2 years. Talk about a long-term solution. Now, let's compare this to President Trump. Back in 2019, he also addressed rising food prices and gasoline costs during his State of the Union address. However, by August 2020, gas prices had dropped under his administration due to reduced demand amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Fast forward to November 2021, Trump tweeted that gasoline prices had reached an all-time high during Biden's term. It seems that every time there's an election coming up for a Democrat in Congress or Joe Biden himself, gas prices skyrocket under their watch. Quite a coincidence. That wraps up today's discussion on how President Biden and Trump have addressed issues crucial to North Carolina voters. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and want more content like it, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next one.